Hello guys, João Pereira here. Today I have a new tutorial on Houdini and I'm going to show you guys how I did this effect. As you can see. So let's get started. Let me delete all of this. I don't know why it's here. Alright, so I have my geometry here. And the first thing I'm going to do is convert this to a polygon and add a trail node, so I can compute the velocity. Alright, as you can see, maybe the velocity is too much. I'm going to change this to like 0.6, I don't know, yeah, it's good. So we have our geometry here, as you can see, and to do this effect I used the Pyro Simulation with the smoke, and then I used the smoke to advect my pop particles. So let me just add a null and I will call this geometry. So on the limbic, go to Pyro Effects and select Billowy Smoke. Alright, pretty fast. As you can see, we have this. We can't see the object because of the containers, so I'm just gonna, on the resize container, I'm just gonna delete this on the Pyro Simulation. And I'm just gonna color this blue. Alright. On the Pyro node, the first thing I'm going to do in the velocity swap, initial data velocity swap, and I'm just gonna go to your limbic and out geometry and change the scale to something really low, something like 0.1 should work. Alright, as you can see now, if we scrub, when the my geometry enters this box, it will simulate the smoke, but the box is it's not fitting correctly, so I'm just gonna change it. You can use the bounding box expression, but I'm just gonna change this manually. So yeah, I'm just gonna pull this up maybe a little more. Right, and one thing I can do is on the size, copy this parameter and paste copy relative reference and divide this by 2. Yeah, so it's always on the ground. And no, minus, I'm dumb, and I'm just gonna do minus 0.2. Yeah, so it's a little bit the ground, and just change the size, make this smaller. Alright, as you can see, the geometry is here. Change it till it fits, and now the simulation, it's occurring. It's a little bit slower because the box is smaller, but this should work for our purposes. So next thing I'm going to do is change the parameters on the parasolver. I changed the temporary diffusion 0.3, and on the buoyancy I just changed this to 0 because I don't want the smoke to move up, and the buoyancy left to 1 just around it. I'm just gonna delete the gravity because I don't need it. And next thing I'm going to do is the combustion. I don't need it, but I need to change the shape. The dissipation, I want it to be really high and a really big disturbance. 0.35 should work. I'm just gonna make the same here. Next, I'm just gonna go to the turbulence tab and change the swirl because I want to be very swirly, and change the grain. The grain is just like the roughness, I think, so I don't want this to be I want the smoke to be really smooth, so I'm just gonna change this. Yeah, this should work fine. Next, just go to the advanced and use the OpenCL, so it's faster. And on my version I used 5 substeps here and here, but it's gonna be really slow for the tutorial, so I'm just gonna use the one. And on the Pyro, on the division size, I used a really, it doesn't need to be really that high definition, so I used 0.02 I think on my, so just change it to what fits your needs. As you can see, it's advecting the velocity. It's maybe too much still. I can change it on the trail, maybe 0.4, I don't know, and it should work fine. So next thing, since we have our smoke ready, is add the particles. So go to the particles, source particles. The object I want to emit from is the limbic, so I'm just gonna go here, alt geometry, pick this. Okay, as you can see now, it creates another, it merges these two together. On the pop object, I can even turn off the visualization of the smoke. Now if you run this, you can see particles emitting. So I just want to go to the rigid bodies in a ground plane, so it can collide, and L again to layout, and disable proxy. No, I don't want to see it, so okay. So to change this, I'm just gonna put this up, and first thing I'm going to do is add a pop advect by volumes, and I want to advect the Pyro. So on the velocity source, top data, and the top object is the Pyro, and increase the air resistance. So yep, so it should now advect these particles. So I'm just gonna, on the SOP, I'm not gonna use the limbic, but use the alt geometry. What? All right. And on the birth, it's fine. 5. You can increase this later to have more particles. On the attributes, I'm just gonna disable the use inherited velocity, because I already have the velocity from the Pyro. It's giving an error because it's on frame 1. On frame 2 it should work, or it's hidden. So yeah. So next thing I'm going to do is add a pop force to create a little bit more displacement. Yeah, you can change this to whatever you like. I'm just gonna put this here. Alright, and next is a pop attract. But before we jump to these settings, I need to give it something to attract to. So I'm just gonna move this here, and I'm gonna use a time shift. This is another method I used. I can use the technique I used on the previous tutorial, which is to store the P position, but this is faster, so I'm just gonna, I don't know, select a frame. Doesn't really matter what frame it is, and scatter some points on it. And on the scatter, make sure to go to the output attributes and select these two. And then we need to interpolate between the two. The destination geometry is this one, and the source attributes is this one. So now if we replay this, you can see the points stick to the geometry. Right, you can increase this, of course. And before I jump up, it's gonna cook, but I'm just gonna change it to frame like 5. I'm just gonna add a null and call this out points. Go to the Pyro Sim again, and on the pop attract, the attraction type, change it to points. The subpath is the out points we just created, and the match method, I need to change it to point per particle. Let's just decrease the force to 0.5 maybe. And on the end of all of this, I'm just gonna add a pop drag and increase this to 2. So it... And one last thing I forgot to mention is on the Olympic source, make sure the life expectancy is like 0.5, 0.5, no, 1 should work. Alright, now if we play this, you can see the particles being affected by the smoke and the point geometry. It's really low res, but once you increase the constant birth rate, you will see it actually giving a really nice effect. And I did some... what was it? As you can see here, it has like steps, as you can see, like steps, and you can use this by just adding another source. Just copying this source, placing it here, and on the attributes, make sure this is set to stuck, and you will see the stepping. You just need to inherit the velocity, I think. Yep. And you will see some stepping. The resolution is really low, so you won't see anything. But yeah. So next thing I'm going to do is color these particles. As you can see, it gives a really nice look. It's really low res, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just gonna delete the pyro import because we don't need the smoke. I'm just going to go to the source particles, as you can see, and add an attribute fop, and jump inside, and we need to range these particles. So I'm gonna measure the velocity using a length. I'm gonna add a fit range and ramp. Alright, connect the ramp to the color. This here, this here. I'm just gonna promote everything. I can maybe increase the particle count so we can see this better. The big source. Just gonna... it needs to recook, so let's give it a few frames. It's still not enough. It's still really low resolution, but... and when you increase this, make sure you increase the scatter. You can even copy the parameter and paste the relative reference and maybe divide it by 2 or 2/3. Yeah. So go to the source particles, and as you can see, yeah, we have this here. I'm just gonna change the max value like 6. As you can see, the low velocity ones will be will be black. I don't want black, I just want like a grayish. Yeah. Mess with this value to control it. And next thing, I'm just gonna create an attribute. And this one is gonna be the P scale. And the value I'm going to use is $CR divided by 15. So the particles will be big when they are high speed and smaller when they go really slow speed. You can see this here, but you will see it on the render. So next thing is add another attribute fob. We can even copy this one, paste this here. Ta-da. And I'm just gonna change this one, something like. And this time, on the ramp, you can just color it something like orange, yellow, green, blue. Alright. You can see this, but because you just have to mess with the range. So it's the same thing. The high velocity particles will be red and the low velocity ones will be blue. And I also changed the interpolation to cut wrong, so it's smoother. Just mess with these values, as you can see. Depends on the velocity of your particles. And it's done. I can just add not output and null and surrender out. Control click on this one, or maybe just set the display flag. And to render this out, I just need to create a camera. So control click camera to make it from the view. And then environmental light, I'm just gonna use the Houdini library and use like a, I don't know what this look like. Where is it? Just gonna use an outdoor scene. No, this one should work. Yep. Add a mantra PBR node, and I'm just gonna use this by half. Let's see what it looks like. The particles aren't so big, as you can see. So to fix this, the attribute create, we can even turn this like 35. Yeah. Or maybe keep the same value, but on the attribute fob, instead of pure white, let's change this to something smaller, as you can see. Maybe even more. And here it's something darker. And you can see the gaps, but that's because we don't have enough particles on the scene. Just mess with the parameters, something like 4. Let me see this. Right. Just mess with this. And yeah, I think I also, on mine, I also rendered the geometry. No, I didn't. But this has a really high point count, and I used the scatter, the stuck particles to create this step effect. and this will give it this result. Alright, as you can see, it's really low count. So yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you next week for another tutorial. Bye.